There's a new book in homiletics, and it represents a live conversation that people who are making theories about preaching, who are doing homiletics, talk about. And the book is called Honest to God Preaching. And the point of his book, what his thesis is that too much preaching doesn't delve into the hard and difficult things. It instead kind of stays at this level where we talk about sort of only the pleasant things or briefly touch on some of the hard things, but we don't really go into the deep exploration of what is live in our world and in our hearts. And you know that I, as your minister, don't tend to follow that, high. I mean, we do the joyful, and we do the humorous, and we do the exciting and all the things that are blooming and possible in the world. But we also dig into some of the harder questions. Today is going to be one of those days. Democracy is the answer. With the exception of only those on the farthest fringes, that claim recirculates like air. We Unitarian Universalists cite democracy and our shared values. It's been one of my own values. It's one that I have preached on many times. I've tended to side with Winston Churchill on this one, who says, democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others. I have such a knee-jerk reaction about this, such a clear sense that I've made up my mind on the issue, such a clear sense that any sort of meaningful ethical debate that we have needs to be held up in sort of a democratic conversation that is happening in our country. I have such a knee-jerk reflexive reaction to affirming that I find myself rejecting any critique of it out of hand. Of course, democracy is the answer. The problem is that we haven't persuaded enough people to vote, or we haven't talked to them about the issues that matter to them, or we haven't been moderate enough, or whatever it is. There might be something that we haven't done right, but it's not democracy itself, and it's not the conversations that we have in democracy that are the problem. A book fell into my lap not long ago, and it's one that I have been thinking about a lot recently. It's a hard book, it's a painful book, it's a beautiful book, and it is a searing critique of liberal democracy as it is practiced in the West. One day, everyone will have always been against this. By Omar Akkad. Akkad calls it his breakup letter with liberalism and the West. As he argues in the book, Western liberal capitalist democracies are failing because they engage repeatedly in disingenuous, self-delusional behavior. They ignore travesty or even outright accept it and later wash their hand of responsibility by claiming that no one was ever for it to begin with. One day, everyone will have always been against this. No one ever accepted Japanese internment or the bombs that fell on Hiroshima. No one ever accepted the refusal of medical help to gay men during the AIDS crisis. No one ever opposed school integration. No one was ever for the school-to-prison pipeline and police brutality of black and brown people. No one ever supported the war in Iraq, and no one will ever have supported the genocide that is happening in Palestine. To Akkad, this is the game that liberal democracies play, a game of cynical self-deception. At one point, of course, there was a consensus that all of the things that I mentioned were acceptable, or if not acceptable, at least ignorable. It was okay to look the other way and then later to wash our hands of it and make ourselves feel good that we were never for it anyway. That line, one day everyone will have always been against this. It's been haunting me since my first day down in Broadview. And there was this particular moment, this splinter that I can't dig out. It was the first time that I saw vans of people being disappeared into the abduction facility, a facility that a judge compared to a modern Auschwitz, where people don't have food, clean water, working toilets, places to sleep, toiletries, medication, medical assistance, pastoral care or support, ability to call lawyers or family members. And that line, it came to me then, one day, everyone will have always been against this. And when they are, when it's completely safe and there is nothing to lose, Congress will wax eloquent about human rights and the common good. They'll find unity among the parties by erecting memorials and creating a holiday, or they won't. And we'll find it really doesn't matter either way, because the result will be the same, that it is too late to do anything about it. What we are witnessing right now in our country is a moral consensus, a shared acceptance that what is happening at Broadview and Alcatraz and in the other detention facilities across the country, that it is okay. America voted for this. America wanted this. And of course, some will tell me that Trump is the least popular president in history and that people didn't foresee the measures that he was going to take once in office, that people are now starting to rise up. Sure, that is all true, but he was still voted in. He won the electoral vote and the popular vote, and he never hid his plan to rip people from their families, to lock them in cages, and deport them to countries that they might not even be from. America has formed a consensus that this is okay, that this is acceptable, or at the very least, when the reality becomes too uncomfortable, that it is something that we can look away from, we can ignore this suffering. I often have something like a sparring partner in my head as I'm working through a sermon, especially a difficult sermon. And this time it's one of my mentors in ministry, a dear man that I love and respect. And he always talked to me about pragmatic solutions and working within the system to create change. He believed that democratic institutions are imperfect and that over time they will correct themselves. It will get better. That if we just patiently wait and pull the right levers, America can be fixed. But as Omar Akkad says, this assumes that America is broken. It assumes that there was an America that was whole at one point, that wasn't like this at some point. Such an America never existed. Our country has always stood for the impoverishment of the many on behalf of the very few, and the exclusion and annihilation of groups of people on the altar of whiteness, national identity, and the family. Today, trans people and immigrants are receiving the worst of it. And of course, one day, everyone will have always been against this. Americans will tell themselves that no one voted for it, that we were always horrified about what was happening, that we never meant for it to go this way. But at least for today, at least for right now, there is a broad consensus, or enough of a consensus to permit it. And all the while, I am watching the vans with blacked out windows or windows that are deeply tinted, and I see the silhouettes of the people who have been ripped from their families being taken into that Broadview facility every week. And I'm wondering what to do, what to think, what words can possibly address this injustice. What ethical frame do we need right now as we are witnessing this moral disaster? And this is where I'm grateful that I studied ethics for years and that I taught it at the college level and at the seminary for many years, because I think that there are resources to think through this moment and what it is that we need to do. And the person who has come to mind for me in this moment, it is a philosopher by the name of Alain Badiou. And he is perhaps the most influential thinker alive in France today and a fierce advocate on behalf of refugees. Like Omar Akkad, Badiou is a ferocious critic of modern liberal democracy. He believes that it stands as an alibi for capital to exploit and ravage and for the nation state to exclude and degrade. It cloaks itself in the language of pragmatic and reasonable solutions, which he argues are always really a conversation about who we are going to let die. This is how he puts it, writing from his position in France. When our current prime minister, the political eulogist of a civic ethics, declares that France cannot welcome all the misery of the world, he is careful not to tell us about the criteria and the methods that will allow for us to distinguish those that we welcome from those that we will request, no doubt from within detention centers, to return to their place of death so that we might continue to enjoy all those unshared riches, which, as we know, condition both our happiness and our ethics. Badiou argues that we have to find our way out of this cynical game. And the way to do it, in his view, and he is a really deep thinker about all these big philosophical concepts like ontology and epistemology and ethics. He goes into all of these, really kind of complicated theoretical frames. And what he's able to produce out of it is a really compelling ethics. And what he says is that what you need to do if you are going to act ethically in this time, in this place, is that you have to find the event that shakes you. You have to find that event that shakes you, that absolutely punches a hole in your view of things, and then to build your ethics from that. Such an event is one that splits a person in two. There is a before and an after, and the after is reshaped by the event itself. It's about being true to that moment that breaks us open, even when we are a tree that stands alone. Such events are not happenings in the ordinary sense. These events mark a rupture from the past, and they mark a birth into an alternative future. And what's important about these things is not that they accord with a consensus about what is right and good and possible as it exists today. It's not that they are deemed reasonable and acceptable by the Washington Post or the New York Times or whatever we take to be the guardian of common sense. Badiou would say that common sense is already haunted by the specter of death. It has already made peace with which group of people will die for its sake. And so what does this look like? What does this fidelity to the event look like? I am working through my ethics of my experience at Broadview. And I am asking myself, what does it mean for me to be faithful to that event that is crystallized in seeing those vans abducting those people? If I am truthful to the event that has riven me, that has absolutely shaken me, it is this then, that there can be no more detention centers, no more deportations. And I will do everything in my power to protest, to press for bills, to expose its horrors, to disrupt the smooth operation of things, to refuse compromises and platitudes. I will continue to accept the tear gas and the pepper spray and the batons and the threats of arrest. And I will refuse attempts to soften or water down my commitment to a world without cages, holding doggedly to the truth that another world is possible. Because another world is possible. Yes, the nihilistic politics of modern Western democracy are real. But the emancipatory puncture, the radical break with the present order of things, it's also real. It has happened. There are moments that shattered the consensus, the common sense, and then reshaped the future. The Montgomery bus boycott, it was real. The strikes against apartheid changed the world. Gandhi's Salt March ended an occupation. Stonewall changed everything. The ACT UP protests were real. The Ferguson demonstrations created a movement. The indigenous water rights and land victories were real. And we are still feeling the reverberations of the effects of those events. They are still being felt in the world, and people are still faithful to them. And every one of those was deemed impossible by a system haunted by a deceptive and hollow philosophy, but people were nonetheless split open by them, swore fidelity to them, and had their lives redirected to a truth that reshaped the order of things. And we can do that too. We can be faithful to that truth that splits us open and makes us free. We can choose to have fidelity to that thing and then persevere with it, letting it seize us and reshape us. As Badiou puts it, do all that you can to persevere in that which exceeds your perseverance. Persevere in the interruption. Seize in your being that which has seized and broken you. For it is in that opening that another world, a world beyond the nihilism of the current order, it becomes possible. Another world is possible. Another world is possible. Another world is possible.